G'day viewers and welcome back to another episode of AFL Fantasy Chats with Heff and Checkers. Fresh off the Div 12 Resi State of Origin game. How'd you pull up, Checkers?
Yeah, not too bad. A lot of sleep this week, but that's all right. We got through. Played in the hail, played in the rain, played in the wind. I don't know what it was like up in the commentary box, but some crazy scenes late in the game when the hail hit the ground.
Yeah, it was quite cold up in the commentary box, but I don't think it was anywhere near as cold as you guys were getting out in the field.
It was only for a little bit, which is good. It didn't rain the whole game, but we did get home unscathed. I've been playing a bit of catch up with the fantasy world because didn't watch the games on Saturday night, didn't watch the games on Saturday at all, to be honest. So playing a little bit of catch up with my Saturday, but yeah, not a bad weekend overall in fantasy, I guess. A few point of difference players went okay. I'll kick it off. I scraped down a few ranks, went down to 5,400, scored 1968. I don't know if it was a bit lower scoring this week, a few more players on a bye week than last week. We also had one of the lowest scoring rounds on the scoreboard of AFL ever, so not a lot of goals kicked, not a lot of centre bounce attendances, and maybe we saw some effect of that. But got off to a good start for the week with Tim English as my VC. Also traded in Matt Kennedy and Sam Docherty, who both tonned up the first week I had in my team. So that was a good sort of start. Some downsides, maybe like Tom Liberatore getting a shift out of the midfield with Adam Treloar back, or maybe trading out Riley Bice a little bit as well. I saw those scores. So what about yourself?
Yeah, it didn't go too bad. I think I went up like 300 spots. So I scored, where is my score here? 1831. And yeah, went up to 5,567. I took on the Tristan Cherry 111 captaincy, chucked it on Nick Dacos on the Monday, knowing that he had 150 the last time he played in Melbourne, albeit in a dead rubber. But yeah, it didn't quite get there, and he scored the 83 this week. So that probably damaged the score a little more. Could have been up around some of those top guys in the leagues that I'm in anyway, that were all scoring around like kind of high 1800s. If I didn't change it, but not the end of the world. Like I said, still came up in ranks. And I think that was because like most of my weeks, I reckon I've got the buys pretty well sorted. The week that kind of everyone was at full strength kind of thing, because there was only 2 teams on the buy, I kind of expected to not go as well this week and still kind of held rank pretty well. So I think that kind of sets me up good for the rest of the buy rounds. But we'll have to wait and see. I don't know how you feel, but like I think many people are like treating buy rounds very differently. Like some people are doing using the extra trades to get rookies down and get extra green dots that way, where I think like because there's like 5 rounds this year, I think a lot of people are being a bit more loose with their trades, and that might be affecting things a little bit. What are your thoughts in the kind of strategy for buys?
I was definitely a little bit more loose last week. On the normal week, probably wouldn't have traded in Sam Docherty, but I just thought with 3 trades over the next couple of weeks, if it does fail, if he does get dropped, if he finds himself out of the fold, I'm going to have trades to sideways fix that up. So maybe, yeah, I was saying last week, maybe people are doing 1 or 2 trades that they would normally do, but they're feeling like the 3rd trade is a bit of a free swing. We're seeing some crazy names on trade tables. Louis keeps bringing me heaps of crazy names, and he's someone who's in the top 1,000. So
he's in the top 100 after last week. He's in the 90s, I think.
The 90s. Well, he's fading because he was 27 a few weeks ago. So
yeah,
needs to hold on to his hat. Yeah, I think with the buys last, is it 5 weeks of buys? It gives you a bit of a chance to have a free swing, and if one does fail, then you can sideways fix it up, I guess. But it's going to be interesting to see who comes out better placed, those who are downgrading, upgrading across the 5 weeks, or those that are sort of having the free swing, maybe getting onto a good pod before everyone else can, like 2 or 3 weeks early. Eventually see at the end of the 5 weeks how teams are placed, because there could be some teams that are still rolling 3 or 4 rookies just because they've been sideways swinging at point of difference players. So
my kind of strategy has been 1 up, 1 down, and then a sideways. So like go down to a player, take 1 up, and then go sideways on a player that's on the buy that is probably not going to be top 6. So, for example, Tom Liberatore I got rid of in the first week of the buy rounds. Can't remember who I moved him across to now, but it was like another primo. Yeah, actually, it was Nick Dacos. I moved him across to Nick Dacos and then kind of went 1 up, 1 down. That's kind of my strategy of doing that. But when I go up, I go to a player that's also had their buy. And so in the first week, I kind of brought in players that are on the round 16 buy. So, it gives me 4 weeks to kind of move them forward and get them off the bye. So that's been going pretty well. Supercoach, I'm still in the top 10,000, but I don't know. I've kind of given up on that this season. It's just been so hard with the cash generation and injuries and stuff like that. It's been a pretty messed up year for Supercoach. So I'm starting to give up hope. But anyways, let's get stuck into the show. You got any pods that you want to talk about this week?
Well, I was just going to say, with your trades this week, it's a little bit harder because we did only have the 2 teams on the bye last week. So there's quite a few strong teams the next fortnight, or strong players in the comp. We're talking top 10 or top 6 each line that are on their bye. So like Collingwood, Sydney got quite a few handy defenders that maybe people want to bring in, whether you're looking at Blakey or Roberts, or and then the week after we've got the Crows. So you got Geordie Dawson who's flying, and you can get onto some of their mids who are a bit young, and Gunn, if you might have Track and Oliver and Gorn. So yeah, just the 2 buys last week. Not a lot of fantasy friendly options from those guys that have passed their buy as well. There's not a lot of premium players on the table. So maybe this is the week that we have a swing at some crazy names, or just downgrade. There could be some big downgrade options, and then you might want to do upgrades next week is all I'm thinking. I was going to say strategy-wise, not a lot of premiums on the table that have passed their buy.
There's a few
Unless
there.
You want to fill your team with Doggy's boys.
There's a few there, because I don't have Nazai Wanganeen-Millera, for example. And then if you've got Roberts or Bice, that could be an upgrade target to go to there. The other one's Sinclair as well. Steele, if you're really looking for a mid. Brayshaw and Sarong, not bad targets. I don't think it's too bad from last week. When you consider the 4 before, there's not a lot of options that I did love. You had Bont from the Bulldogs, who probably isn't in his best form and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm feeling like I'll talk about my pods. Actually, I'll go straight to it now. One of my pods of this week is actually Jordan Clark for Freo. So he's one I really like at the moment just because of his price. He's really easy to get to because he's only 900K. And he's kind of shown the tendencies where he can kind of get to those kind of 110, 120 scores. He's definitely done it in the past. But what I like about him the most is his run that's coming up. He's got North Melbourne, Essendon, which are easy for defenders, for rebounding defenders, that is. St Kilda are surprisingly neutral. They don't really give up more or less to clubs at the moment because they used to be the easiest ones to score against. It's more their forwards are scoring well against them at the moment. But then Sydney, Hawthorn, which are also easy for rebounding defenders. Collingwood, which is sort of hard. And then West Coast after that, which is an easy one. So he's actually got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of his next 7 are what I'd call easy matchups for rebounding defenders. So he's one I'm really liking the look of, and I think he's a bit more unique. I'm not sure many people will go there. Plus, you save a bit of cash. Everyone's going to be going Nazire. Everyone's going to be going Sinclair this week. If you get him in, you can save a bit of cash and put that towards someone else on your team, and you hopefully get a kind of similar type of run for the next 6-7 weeks anyway. What do you think?
I just don't know if he's got a ceiling in fantasy. I know he does some really good Supercoach scores. I think his fantasy ceiling is probably about a flat 100, maybe 110. But I'd love to see him sort of pick up a little bit like a Whitfield or a Lockie Ash does off halfback and really just 140 sometimes, because he is prone to a 70 or a 60 sometimes as well when he gets sort of cut out of games. But Freo players are so hard to pick. They're just their form can be so inconsistent, and we know when you're winning games, your fantasy scores are better. When you're losing games, your fantasy scores are worse. They can go through 3 games in a row of losing, or they can go through a patch where they win 3 or 4 games in a row as well. So we get maybe a bit of a false reading on how they're going when they win a few games, and then they go on a run of losing a few, and we get really stiffed. So I know a few blokes got stiffed that way. They saw Freo win a few games of trading in Shai Bolton, and maybe that won't, when they lose a few in a row, because their form's so inconsistent. They're not a really consistent side that when they lose, they can still lose by 100 points sometimes on the scoreboard.
Yeah, I will say, though, that Fremantle, their run home is remarkably easy. People are looking at them to even actually kind of make a run for top 4, in the way they're going at the moment, because they're just sitting inside the 8 at the moment. They've had their bye. North, Essendon, St Kilda, Sydney, Hawthorn and Collingwood are tricky, but then West Coast, Carlton, Port, and then Brisbane and Western Bulldogs to kind of finish it off. So their run home is actually quite nice. And then Clark also, if you look at last season, it was a bit of a different kettle of fish, but he did go 120 4 times over the season. And he doesn't really go under 90. Like, a lot of the time he scores around 90. So, I don't know. I think with the run he's got coming up, I think his hard games are kind of out of the way. And even looking at some of the teams he's playing last year, like, so he had 150 against Melbourne last year, had 140 against the Saints last year. You know, and then I think he against the Swans. There's another one in the Tigers. He scored or close to 100. Like, there's a few in there in the run that he's got coming up that he's playing that he's got a good history against as well. I know. I just think it's a good unique pick when everyone else is going to be going Nazire and Sinclair. Like, if you go them, and you're behind, you're not really going to be overtaking those guys. Where there's a chance where you might overtake those guys with a pod like Clark. One other pod I just want to mention quickly is you've already mentioned him off the top of the show, but Tim English as a ruck. If you've got him in your side, especially if you've got Cherry as your other ruckman, so you've already got a ruck that's got a bye. The week that Max Gawn has his bye, you're in a huge advantage kind of point, and he's scoring as well as any of the top rucks at the moment as well. So I really like him as a pod that you've already kind of labelled in your side. So I'm pretty sure you'd be happy with him too.
He's got the Thursday game again as well, so a little VC loophole option. I don't know how many Thursdays the Dogs play for the rest of the year, but 2 Thursdays in a row is pretty handy.
I actually looked this up because I did a mid-season draft, and my scheme was to see who was the team that had the most Thursday night games, and then bring in a forward, because my forward line's pretty weak in my keeper league team. Bring in a forward that I could loophole the most in the back end of the season, and it's the Dogs. They got equal most from now on Thursday night games, but as of last week they had the most. So I think they've got 3 to go, and Hawthorn are the other one that have 3 as well. So just thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah, to me, there's someone who can put on a monster score. Sometimes prone to maybe a 90 or something like that, but has also shown he can score 150. So, yeah, pretty good VC option when they've got a high ceiling like that. You might like this pick, you might not. I don't know how you're feeling about Port, but Miles Bergman's currently on my radar for this week. 770K, 7% owned. Had 12 CBAs on the weekend, and in a week where CBAs were really low, that was actually second or third highest at Port. So in comparison, Butters had 16 CBAs. So he's pretty close to playing full-time CBA attendance. So averaging 95 over his last 4 games. Obviously had a little bit of a patch in the middle of the season where his role was a bit not how he was enjoying it, playing down back, and he scored a few 30s and a 40. So, but 95 over the last 4. So you're really getting him a bit cheaper than what he should be at because his price dipped. The one interesting stat that's crazy for someone who's having 12 CBAs or playing, mostly 80% midfield time is he had 96% time on ground on the weekend. So he's playing almost like key position time on ground, but also rolling through the midfield. So just one that's currently in my side as a bit of a free hit at 770K. If he does fall away, if he does drop off, I can sideways trade and just need an extra 100 or 200K to get up to a primo. But yeah, one of those free swings in that higher mid-price range that I'm liking.
No, I actually love that pick. I've had him in my team for 3 weeks now. I got him in straight after the showdown when he went to Dawson and tagged him in that game. What's been interesting about his role, especially last week, is he just goes to whoever the mid-forward is. So last week it was Toby Green, and then Toby Green got subbed out early. Brent Daniels came on and played the exact same role, and Bergman just stayed on him all game. Whoever was in that kind of mid-forward role, he would go all game with them. So just thinking about this week, they've got Melbourne. He'll probably go Cozzy Pickett, I reckon, if that's the mid-forward role that he's going to be following around. And Cozzy Pickett's probably not the most defensive player, Bergman will try to go with him, but the thing with Bergman is he'll hurt you the other way. And because he's probably not the guy who will go with him, so you probably just let him get off the chain going the other way. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's another good score in the works for Miles Bergman there. And I think Port do have a kind of nice run coming up as well. I think they've got 3 easier games in a row coming up too. So that's probably another thing in Bergman's favour. So I actually like the pick. And like you said, it's hard to score poorly, like if you're playing that high time on ground and you're running through the midfield. So yeah, no, I like the pick.
Yeah, it might not be a bit of a clearance beast, but like you said, Cozzy Pickett actually had the most CBAs for Melbourne on the weekend, so he's playing a lot of midfield time at the moment. Bergman, if he tags him, is going to get dragged down forward too much. I mean, Cozzy likes to run really hard forward of the ball. But yeah, if you do burn him the other way, he's going to get a fair bit of time in the midfield. So the other one, I'll bring it up again, is Sam Docherty, 2 games in the AFL now, 212 scores. Only 4% owned, has West Coast and North in his next 2. So if he keeps playing the easy teams, keeps his spot on the side, he could be $1 million player in a few weeks' time, and he was only $700K when he came back in. So 2 massive scores in the VFL, 2 tons in the AFL. On a 4-week stretch, his form's pretty good. And he's also had his bye. So Sam Walsh, he brought up last week, had 105, which is pretty handy. So 32 touches, probably a few too many handballs in his 105 there. But and Jack Ginnivan, who we brought up last week, obviously has a bye upcoming, but scored 96 on the weekend after a 30 disposal, 3-goal game against the Pies. He had 23 and 2 on the weekend. So still getting lots of the footy. And maybe once he has his bye, it could be a very good option, but you got to get him pretty expensive.
Just on Docherty, I got sent a text message last night from Geordie DeSena. He copied out a whole article for me, and it was regarding Doc. He must listen to the pod because we were talking about his best 22 chances. And apparently, in the last few weeks, before he went back to the VFL, he had a real honest conversation with Michael Voss about kind of not being able to kind of hack it on the wing, felt like he needed to go back to the halfback. And Voss, I think, essentially said, if you go back to the VFL and prove you've still got that role down, you can come back into the senior side and play halfback. And I think it feels like he's kind of proven that. He went back to the VFL. It was kind of a bit of a decision by both of them, they say. So he could kind of get his confidence up, kind of relearn the role type thing, and then sit on the halfback flank for the rest of the game and not play on the wing. And you've actually seen what's his name, Lord, the Carlton version, not Ollie Lord, I can't remember his first name, but Cooper Lord go to the wing in the last few weeks as well. So I reckon that's really good signs for Docherty to just sit on that halfback line and be that kind of fantasy beast. It's also up in the air whether he plays on next year, and I think that's kind of something that he's working towards. So I think and I think he wants to play on next year. So I think there's like a bit of extra desire there for him to actually work a bit harder, put up some good games, put up some good scores, trying to reclaim his spot in the side for next year. But then also as well, like if it does end up being the end of his career, he could be in for some huge performances towards the end. If Carlton are out of the finals or whatever and they just opt to play him, there could be some absolutely monster scores for him there. So that could be another thing as well. Anyways, I've got
West
one more
Coast
pod.
and North. Sorry, I was going to say, with West Coast and North, there's a bit of a free swing because you don't think, say Carlton should win those 2 games against West Coast and North, and they probably won't make too many team changes as well. It's only the games where they're getting pumped. Do they then swing the axe, cut 5 blokes out, maybe play a few more kids, maybe put the sub vest on Doc? But in games where you're winning easy, you probably want him to, win lots of cheap ball, and the side doesn't really change too much. So 2 free swings really, and then if you look across the 2 games he already played and there's 2 free swings, say he tons up in all 4, like it's going to be hard to not be $1 million player the way he's going. His break even's low, and he'll be very hotly owned. So if you jump on now, it probably is your last week you can jump on before it's too out of the realms of price wise.
No, I don't mind. It's a good cheapie, good kind of mid-price option, almost in that mid-price range. I'll mention one more. We won't talk about it too much because his buy's coming up, so we're not trading him in. But Jai Caldwell, super under-owned at the moment. Since coming back, just scores so freely in that Essendon midfield because he's not the one copying the tag. Like, if anyone's tagging anyone, if they tag Merritt, and they're putting him on the halfback line, so that's where they're kind of running with him at the moment. So it frees him up in the midfield. He scores through tackling a lot as well. He's such a good tackler. Manages to always wrap a few people up. He'll get, minimum 4 tackles per game usually, so that kind of boosts his scoring up there. But yeah, as I said, the buy's coming up, so he's someone to look at after your buy. But if you wanted a unique midfielder that has the capabilities of going, 110 every second week or so, I think he's had 110, 120 in the last 2 weeks. He's a really good option, and he's one of my favourite players in the comp when he's up and about. So, he's one I'm going to be looking at after the buys. All right, got any hot takes for me, Checkers?
Hot takes. All right, you were talking about Melbourne, maybe a little bit easy to score against off rebound defenders. Connor Rosie at the moment, going pretty hot. Melbourne giving up lots of marks and points in their forward 50 to opposition defenders. Josh Dacos and Isaac Quaynor both turned up on the weekend. Went pretty easy for them down back. The week before, Cal Wilkie turned up with a lot of easy marks, intercept marks, and the Sarwang and Mulia also had plenty of marks and turned up. So I'm thinking Connor Rosie playing off centre half back, not playing a lot of time in the midfield. Only had the 5 CBAs on the weekend, so rolls to the midfield a little bit, but also just plays that defensive sort of loose man down back. Always the switch option, the sort of like great footy mind, so he's always the one taking the kick out of D50, sort of like lots of meters gained at the moment for Connor Rozee. So he is that player. He's going to get a lot of uncontested marks. He's going to get a lot of intercept marks, and he's going to get a lot of the chip kicks kicked to him. So I just think he could be a hot take for probably his biggest score of the season. We're looking 130, 140, 150. So if you roll your dice on a doggies player on the Thursday night with your VC and it flops, Connor Rozee would be my choice for captain this week. That's my hot take.
Love that pick. I was destroyed by Josh Dacos in my Keeper League matchup on Monday. The guy I was playing had the captaincy on him as well. And it was just like, that Simpsons quote where like the Harlem Globetrotters and he's just spinning the ball on the finger and, just take it. It was like that. Like, can someone just man up on this guy? But Melbourne obviously have no concerns about halfback flankers and good quality halfback flankers absolutely racking them up. And they almost won the game, so it's like probably something they're not going to change going into this weekend because they're letting that halfback play and they're more worried about kind of defending in their own, just kind of, locking it, and defending the other end type thing and bringing it back their own way. So I think it's a great call. I think he's primed for a big game this week and I might even have a cheeky VC on him, a free swing beforehand before I put it into someone like Gawn or something like that. But my hot take is it's a bit of a risky one because I'm calling it after one game, but Colby McKercher is back.
Was the game this week?
Yeah, had the halfback role back on the weekend, and I am backing it in. Like I think North are better when he plays on the halfback line. I think he's kind of wasted on the wing a bit more. And so, I'm kind of backing it in that they'll keep playing him there. And if that's the case, then he should be a good scorer. He's only 633K. That's the thing. And I think his break even this week is 47. So only needs to make 47 to make your money. And these are the players I'm looking at the moment. Like Kyle Lohmann was a great example last week. Ed Allen was looking good before the actual game. Lucky I didn't bring him in. But a few of these kind of mid-price guys that with low break-evens are they're the best way to make money, I think, in the game at the moment because I think rookies are so unreliable. Like there's a few I like. The Essendon boys aren't too bad. Angus Clark and Zach Johnson, I think they're good options to bring in, but they got their buys coming up as well. So I'm not sure if you want to bring those guys in. Colby McKercher is someone you can go like Matt Roberts down to or whatever if you need to, and then kind of make a bit of cash. I think even if you've got bias, you can go sideways as well. And it only costs you, I think it only costs you a couple like 10 or so grand or something like that, 20 grand to get there from memory. Let me just double check what bias is here. 591. So it's going to cost you about 50 grand to go across. So it's not that much to get there. So like I said, downgrade option or kind of sideways option, but low break even. So still should make you cash. If you can get someone like Bice, for me, who's like my second to last rookie on the ground, apart from Levi Ashcroft, who will go at his buy. I think he's a pretty good option just to kind of bring in a player, and it's kind of no risk, Like if you're playing Bice, you're probably going to get the same scores at their worst anyway. Like Colby McKercher, you're probably going to get a better score at Colby McKercher's worst, is what I'm trying to say, than you would at Bice at his worst. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he had the 35 disposal on the weekend, but just the one mark, which is what was turning me off a little bit. He's playing a bit of that Caleb Daniel footy where he's just rebounding out of defence, but not really grabbing any marks, which is, when they grab marks is when you get the real juicy scores, when you get a 10, 11 cheap marks. Jack Crisp used to be the gun of it back in the day off halfback.
Josh Dacos on Monday. He was a fiend for it.
Yeah, the marks are what we really like to see down back. Lots of little uncontested chip kicks, but he's not getting them. Like, how can you have 35 disposals in the D50 but only the one mark, which was my issue? If that was 35 disposals and 10 marks, that would have been 140 score. Like, he would have been flying. So, 91. Is the ceiling going to be there? Because a 35 disposal game, that's a pretty good game. Like, but if you're only putting up 91 for your 35 disposal game, like, I need to be seeing, if that's your best game of the year, 35 touches, which would be up there, that needs to be a 130, 140 is my only issue. I just don't know if the ceiling's going to be there. I don't know if we're going to cop a few 60s when he has his off games. So,
We're probably going to have a look at another game because, like, this was a game that they thought was winnable, and they're in a kind of coming from behind situation where they just needed to get the ball moving forward as quickly as possible. There was absolutely no chip around, no nothing from about, I think it was halfway through. They didn't score after quarter time to about halfway through the third. So they were desperately trying to get the ball forward, trying to score. And it was kind of, it wasn't kind of a chip around kind of game for him. I think in games where they struggle and they try to stem the bleeding a bit, or teams that are better at kind of zoning off and stuff like that, there will be more chip around looking for options. But I think against West Coast, they thought they could kind of attack a bit more and go a bit more. So that might be something there. Like I said, it's probably someone that we need to have another look at this week. But, you know, like I think there's little risk going in, you know, across from Bice to McKercher or something like that. And just hoping for the best. And if not, then just trade him out after the buys and see how you go. Because that's the other thing as well. He's had his buy as well. So you're going to get a player at least each week to make up the numbers. Anyways, any more you want to give out of that, or are we good to wrap it up?
No, good to wrap it up. I was just going to say trade plans wise, I did say it was a bit of a stiff week to find some primos. There's going to be a lot of good primos next week if you don't have Dacos or a Ned Long or there's a few to jump on next week. If you don't have Matt Roberts or Blakey or trying to think if Heaney or someone like that, there's a few good primos on the table next week. So I'm just going to look at like some downgrade options. Ben Campriale, I saw you put a graphic up of him, but he had a good game in the VFL on the weekend. Going to be hard to break into a West Coast side that's winning every week, but if he does come in, he might be a sub-candidate too because they're playing West Coast and North. They might just chuck him a sub-vest. Ted Kalahisi came in for Bailey Smith and went really well, played through the midfield, so he's only 280k. Clay Hall had 30 touches in the waffle, so he could be another option to come in that's quite cheap. Jed Buslinger got a bog in the VFL, so he's another cheap one who we've seen already. And then Harry DiMattea just knocking on the door for a debut. So I'm just looking for rookie options this week, just do a few downgrades on so I can have some cash in the bank next week. Not a lot going on, though.
Yeah, the other one I liked, I mentioned before, but Zach Johnson looked really good off the halfback flank for Essendon as well. He's only 289k, so he's got break even of -11, and I reckon he probably holds his spot for a few weeks, depending on what they do with Merritt and stuff like that, whether they move him back into the midfield, especially that kind of opens up an even more role. I think I saw Mason Redmond's out for a month as well, so that probably helps him too. So Zach Johnson's probably a good candidate for the rookies back there. I'm actually trading Caden Cleary to Zach Johnson this week via a bit of DPP action. Yep. I'm not sure whether to go sideways, Bice to McKercher, or go up to Clark, who I mentioned before. I might back in that run from Clark and see how he goes. And I think I'm going to sideways, it's kind of an upgrade, but go Ned Long to Brayshaw. Ned Long's kind of served his purpose for me, but like a lot of the other top coaches have Brayshaw, so I can kind of go into him this week. He's had his bye. And then I can kind of roll him through the rest of the bye rounds from there. What do you think of doing?
Try to go 2 down and then just 1 sideways on Bergman. So,
yeah.
Just trying to work. I'm hoping there's a few debutants this week. If not, probably going to have to look at like a Clay Hall or someone who's in and out of the side a bit. But just trying to find some solid options. We're going to play some footy in the back half of the year. Is bench cover is the big issue. Don't really care too much about cash gen because I think in a few weeks I won't need the cash gen as much, but just need some solid bench cover for the rest of the year. So that's the issue we're having.
Yeah, both. Well, this kind of goes hand in hand. The cash gen is often the bench cover, and the bench cover is often the cash gen as well. So, it's a bit tricky at the moment, just with the lack of rookies. But yeah, like I think there's 1 or 2 coming through, and I think there's a good few mid prices that could make you some money, and then also, they're just easy to get to from your rookies, like so we mentioned before. But anyways, may wrap it up there. Anything else you want to plug? I know the biggest Resi's game is over. The State of Origin's over. Anything else coming up?
Nah, just maybe a lockdown and watch some footy this week. I didn't watch much last week, so got to watch a fair bit. Yeah,
I'm in the same boat. I didn't watch anything Saturday, so keen to just knuckle down and get stuck back into the fantasy research. Anyways, we might wrap it up there. Thanks for watching for another week, and we'll talk to you soon. See ya.